Hi YouTube! So the other day I was talking to my friend Cassie about how interested I am in myths and fairy tales and things like that. So she gave me this book of Welsh fairy tales. And so I was reading through it and I was thinking like, oh, maybe it'll have something that's familiar to me, because a lot of fairy tales like Cinderella and things are the same in a lot of cultures. And I started reading this book and nothing is really familiar, which I mean is fine, but nothing really has a fairy tale vibe to it. Like, it has fairies and magical creatures and everything, but they seem kind of mean, and they don't really have a moral at the end of the story, like a lot of fairy tales do, and I'm just rather confused. And so I thought I would share this with you, my fellow Americans, so you could be confused with me. So let's start from the first one that's in the book, and a character that you've probably heard of, the Lady of the Lake. So the Lady of the Lake starts with this guy named Gwyn, or Gwyn, or Gun, or let's just call him Guy, okay? So it starts with this guy named Guy, and he is looking after his cows and watching them, like, graze or whatever by this huge lake, and he looks up and suddenly there's this woman who's standing in the lake, and she is like drop dead gorgeous, am I right? And he instantly falls in love with her, because when someone is that pretty and standing in a lake, then you know they're a keeper, and you should love them with all of your heart and soul unconditionally, just from the first glance. So he is so awestruck by her beauty that he just offers her the bread that he brought with him, like, here, you are pretty, take my shit. But the lady is all, oh thou of the crimped bread, it is not easy to catch me. She ain't that easy to get, hun. Better work harder for that, better get yourself a real job. So he goes home and he starts whining to his mom like, Mom, I met the most beautiful girl in the world, and she's so beautiful, and the most beautifulest, prettiest, beautiful, pretty girl ever, and she doesn't like me. What should I do? So his mother is very supportive of that and said, well, if she didn't like cooked bread, why don't you bring her unbaked bread dough? Because I know when I tell a guy he can't get me with simply bread, I want bread dough. So he goes to the lake the next day, and he's waiting to see the Lady of the Lake. There she is, the most beautifulest, prettiest, beautiful girl in the whole world. And so he holds out his unbaked bread dough for the approval of this pretty lady, and she says, oh thou of the moist bread, I will not have thee. And then she gives a flirty little smile and then dives down below the surface of the lake. So he goes home and said, Mom, she didn't take the dough. And his mom, the quick thinker she is, thought, well, if she didn't want baked bread and she didn't want bread dough, maybe you should give her half-baked bread? So he goes the next day at dawn and he waits for the pretty, pretty Lady of the Lake. And it's morning and he's waiting, and it's afternoon and he's waiting, and the sun's going down and she's still not here, and it's kind of dark now, and he's wondering what the heck is going on. And then, miracle of miracles, there she is, as pretty as ever. So she's walking toward the land, and he rushes out into the lake, and he's like, here is my half-baked bread, I made it just for you special. And so she takes the bread, and he was all, thanks, it's exactly what I wanted. Lady, I love you more than all the world besides, and want you to be my wife. And she says, no. He says, please, pretty please, I love you so much, please, I will make you the happiest woman in the world, I just want to love you, that's all I want to do in my life, just love me too, please marry me. And she says, I will wed you, and I will live with you until I receive from you 3 blows without a cause. When you strike me the 3rd causeless blow, I will leave you forever. And he said, hit you? Why would I want to hit you? You're so pretty and lovely and pretty. I will never, ever, ever hit you. And she's all, yeah, and dives back into the lake. And he is so distraught that he was so close to marrying her, and she just ran away, that he climbed to the highest rock and is about to just throw himself off it into the lake and kill himself. I would like to remind you that this is a book of fairy stories. These are things that are supposed to be told to children. But luckily, before he can make that plunge, he hears an old man say, hey, dumbass, get down, I need to talk to you. So he goes down the rock and he meets this old man. He says, "You may have my daughter, but remember, if you strike her 3 causeless blows, then she will leave you forever." Guys, oh yeah, I get it. I'm never going to hit her ever. Can I go home with my wife now? And so, because they live in this magical place under the lake, she can have as many horses and cows or anything as she wants as she can say in one breath. So she gets like dozens of cattle and horses and all of the livestock to go with her and Guy. And she introduces himself saying that you can call me Nelverk, but we're just going to call her Nellie. So Nellie goes home with Guy, and everyone is ecstatic when they get married, and they have 3 sons, and they live happy for many, many, many years. When the oldest son is about 7, then they're invited to this wedding over in the next town, and Nellie is like, "Oh my goodness, this is an entire town away. I don't want to walk that far. I don't want to go to this wedding." And Guy's like, "No, we need to go to this wedding. Take one of your dozen horses that you brought with you, and you can ride that there if you don't want to walk." Nellie's all, "Fine, I'll find a horse, just go back to the house and get me some gloves." So Guy comes back with the gloves, and Nellie's just standing there looking like she's not going to move. And so he kind of taps her with the glove and says, "Hey, time to go, honey, time to move." And of course, Nellie goes, "Oh my goodness, that was the first causeless blow." And Guy's like, "Oh, wow, it's been 7 years. Why are you doing this right now? I love you. I didn't even mean to hurt you, but okay." So a few years later, they're invited to the christening of this baby that I'm going to assume belongs to the couple that they watched marry a couple years back. And everyone is so happy because there's a new baby, and everyone is just crying tears of joy. But Nellie, of course, is a party pooper and is crying tears of sadness. And so Guy kind of taps her on the shoulder and says, "Hey, Nell, what the hell's going on? Why are you crying like you're George at Fred's funeral?" Nellie goes, "Oh my goodness, that baby is just so tiny and weak. It's not going to be able to live a full life, and it's just going to be in pain and suffering for all of its years. Also, you hit me again." And Guy's like, "Oh shit, I only have one more strike, and then I'm out. I need to be careful with this prissy bitch." So sometime later, the tiny scrawny baby, like Nell said, was in horrible, agonizing pain and died. So they go to the funeral, and everyone is crying and mourning and grieving. And of course, Nell has to be different, and she is laughing and smiling, having a gay old time. And of course, Guy's like, "Hey, hush. People are grieving around here. Why are you so happy?" And Nell goes, "I'm happy because the baby is finally free from its pain and suffering. Also, you hit me again, so I get to go. I'm out now. Bye, bitches." So she starts walking her way back to the lake, and as she's walking by, she calls back all of the cattle and all of the horses and all of the livestock that she brought with her, so it could return back to the city under the lake. She apparently even called it so, strong that there was a calf who had been killed earlier that day, and it came to life just so it could walk away, and Guy couldn't have it anymore. So yeah, under the lake they went, the lady and all of her livestock, and Guy is distraught because he has lived his years with this woman, he has loved this woman, but she's all, yeah, my marriage contract that I made with you, it's over, so I'm gonna split. And so he's admittedly a little bit upset, so he goes back to that plan he had earlier about jumping off the cliff and killing himself. So that happened. But on the bright side, a couple years later, the lady of the lake comes back and tells her sons how to be good physicians. So, that's a silver lining. Tune in next time for more stories from the Welsh Fairy Book. Yeah.